We're here at the Harmony Cultural Center in Jerusalem. This is a venue for art exhibits. They are pretty much constant throughout the whole year. And the current exhibit is basically thematically about motion, which can be interpreted, I'm sure, in a very broad way, like many themes. And this place also has, besides artwork on the walls, it's a place also of performances, musical performances, and so on. So there's a lot of great art all over. I'm going to look forward to looking at the different pieces in detail in a moment, but I came actually to talk about my piece. I submitted here, for this particular show, I submitted a photograph that is a photograph of cars, and it's an etched photograph, and I'll explain in a moment what that is. We'll take a look at it. Most of my work, for people who know my work, is about realism, which means real life. I'm a photojournalist. I do journalistic stuff, and occasionally I do stuff that's more experimental, and a little bit more increasingly at this particular time. About 20 years ago, I started to take some of the photographs of mine that I'd taken over the years, over the decades, and manipulate them a little bit by etching into them. So I'll explain what that means. It means taking a 4x6 print, which is an RC print, resin coated, and with the scissors starting to just etch away, sometimes scraping, but really just scraping whole bunches of the emulsion away till other colors are revealed, but leaving enough of the subject matter that's sort of discernible to some degree what's taking place. Once you start to etch away the photographs, there are different layers there that become seen, and they are of different colors, which are used to complete a photograph in the way that we might see it, with a bounty of colors. And you'll see reds, you could see yellows. I then went over these particular photographs, many of them, and I stamped them with an ink pad, usually blue ink. And I put that there, and that sort of gave it an interesting, manipulated look, very different from, again, what I usually photograph. I started to do this also with not resin coated only, but also black and white prints, where I would take these paper prints, which have no resin on them, nothing plastic, no other layers underneath, start to scrape away at them, just to see what kind of outcome I could get from those. A lot of this is experimentation. I think that's very important in art, to experiment, and even to do so beyond our particular approach. So that just allows for new discoveries that might be applicable to a given person's affinity and so on. If you want to know if you're going to ruin a photograph by etching it, I don't just mean creating good art or bad art. If there is such a thing, there is such a thing. But if you're going to ruin the photograph, not really if you have a copy of the negatives that the photographs were made from. We're talking about non-digital work. We're talking about work that was made using a negative, either black and white or color or something like that, or maybe even from a slide. So if you etch a photograph, you're still left with the original negative. And you can always make a traditional image of that, a non-etched one. But there were times, of course, and there still, I think, probably are in the artistic world, there were times when people would etch into the negatives to create certain effects, both still photography and also film. People would etch into it for experimental purposes, or even to create some of the effects that needed to be done before there was all the computer-generated effects. If you want to make something fly, like a burst of flame from a gun, it could be etched into the celluloid to show like a burst of flame, rocket ships going off, stuff like that, all stuff that we do now in a very digital fashion. So you could do etched photographs on your photographic prints, but if they're the only ones in your possession, like family heirlooms or something like that, then, or an Ansel Adams print that you bought for umpteen thousands of dollars, please don't etch into them. Those are the only copies that you got. Rather, you could take a photograph of them, perhaps have it printed out, and then go ahead and work on that if you want to have some sort of artistic time to express yourself with etched photographs.